welcome back. This is, we're Roman Camp. We're doing something, we're normally metal tests, but today we're going to be doing a little bit of eyes only, aren't we?
Yeah, so we're entering the world of field walking, which is looking for surface finds with your eyes.
So in this video we're going to be taking you through all the different kinds of artefacts that you could find just lying on the surface, and there's plenty to be keeping an eye out for.
Let's get into it.
So we're going to be kicking it off in some ploughfield, aren't we?
Yeah, ploughfield's the best for field walking because that's when you're going to get finds that are being turned over by the plough and coming up to the surface.
Yeah, stuff's been ratting around in here for centuries, being gradually broken down by the plough getting smaller and smaller. So field walking, much like metal detecting, is quite important to save artefacts from the plough.
And it's also really important to record them as well.
Exactly, the data from field walking can lead to the discovery of new archaeological sites just as much as the data from metal detecting. So we're going to kick it off with one of our most common eyes-only finds, which we find a lot of, and this is pottery.
And this is possibly one of the oldest types that you can find.
Yeah, I mean, here in Britain, we've been making pottery since 4000 BC, and actually the finding of pottery can reveal a lot about like the local trade that was going on in your area, because pottery at that time was very localised. And this type is a type that is called shellyware.
Yeah, and that's because of the distinctive shell that you can find within the matrix of the pottery fabric.
Yeah, exactly. So like they mix all this like shell and grass inside, which gives it this quite airy, like flecky quality to it, and it feels quite light and spongy as well. But this was used from as early as Iron Age, and then in Lincoln it was also used quite a lot after the Norman conquest, where they kind of went back to their roots to create this type of pottery again. There would be a bit of uneven firing as well, so there could be bits of red in there, there could be bits of black in there. Like, it's quite a beautiful surface to find, really.
Yeah, it's really beautiful with that sort of speckled shell flecking through it.
Oh, it's absolutely stunning. It's one of my favourite types to find.
So another ancient find, which isn't as common in our area, is flint tooling.
Yeah, so humans have literally been making flint tools for at least 2 million years. It predates metal, so it's like the oldest thing you can find in a field. But it's really hard to figure out whether it's been worked or not, isn't it? I feel like we're starting to get there.
Yeah, it's something that we've been working on this year. It's like one of our eyes-only goals is to find more flint tools.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like we've already found some potential blades and maybe some points that have been broken. But it's quite hard to look for because you need to be looking for this kind of like... There's distinctive things in the flint, isn't there, to look for?
Yeah, you've got retouching along the edge, which is where it's been worked.
Yeah, and it looks a bit like a serrated edge of like a normal butter knife. And then you can also get the bulb of percussion, which is basically like, it's almost like a blister in the flint itself, isn't it? Which is what's formed from the flint being struck off the flint nodule.
Some types of flint tools to look out for are scrapers, the classic arrowhead as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to find one of the real proper barbed and tanged arrowheads. That's like my absolute dream.
Little bucket lister, I think, for this year.
Full bucket lister. But then quite an interesting and fun fact is that even after the introduction of metal, humans still use flint to make some specific things and tools. For example, in more later times, like the Civil War kind of period, they used, where we had muskets, they made square gun flints, which were used for striking the powder inside the gun.
Ah, wow.
So that's another thing to look out for, is strange square ones. That could be another type of flint tool. So flint isn't a material that occurs naturally everywhere in the UK.
So if you come across it in your field, it's very likely that it's been put there by a person.
Yeah, so you need to be scrutinising every bit of flint, looking out for all those signs. So a type of pottery that we find a lot of, but that's just down to our site, is Roman greyware. And it's actually one of the most common Roman types of pottery that you can find anywhere, to be honest.
It's quite easy to recognise from the colour.
Yeah, definitely. So when the Romans came to Britain, they also brought in like this massive wealth of culture with them as well. And a large part of this culture was pottery. They imported and made pottery on an industrial scale, and everybody used it. They used it for everything.
There we go, that's what we want to see. That's what we want to see. Hopefully there's some coins come along with that. It's a lovely piece there.
So you can find lots of different types of Roman pottery. There's the more high-end stuff, which is the red-coated Samian ware. Then you have mortaria ware, which is like their pestle and mortar, which is normally quite white and has got grit in it. And then you have the finer white ware, which was used for amphora, which were like large vessels which they would store wine in and transport around.
Our favourite types of pottery to find is the very distinctive green glaze.
Yeah, so green glaze pottery was first made in the later Saxon period at around 850 AD. And the earliest type is actually called Stamford ware, which we find a lot of. It's like this paler green ware that you find. And then it was used throughout the medieval period. It was like their most common piece of pottery. I mean, green glaze was all they had, so they just glazed everything in it.
And it's such a beautiful colour, like really almost like emerald, but then you get these almost like citrusy green colours as well.
Oh, it's so stunning. And then the pottery at this time was mostly used for the storing and cooking and preparing of food. Like, not many people would actually eat off pottery. They would have eaten off more like wooden or glass bowls, really. Glass if you were rich, wooden if you were poor. And then like this pottery was mainly used for like large decorative jugs, which could have some really beautiful decoration on them.
And I feel like we tend to find a lot of handles from these.
Oh yeah, definitely. They were storing a lot of food near us.
Just spotted a really good bit. Looks like it's got some decoration on it.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh wow,
That's a stunner.
that's so cool.
And this piece of green glaze is probably one of my favourite pieces I've ever found. I do like finding the handles, but this is the first piece that's actually got some quite interesting decoration on it.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, with that like applied decoration across the top and then that little pellet. That must have been off a really elaborate jug.
I wish I could have seen what the whole thing looked like.
Stunning. So unlike the Romans, who quite valued their pots and would fix them when they broke, it's kind of been speculated that pottery for medieval people, because it was such a cheap and versatile and readily made material, that it would be discarded if they broke, and often just ditched. So if you find lots, then it's most likely you're looking at a medieval settlement on your hands.
One of my favourite things to look out for is oyster shells.
Yeah, so this is probably like leftover Roman or medieval food waste, or it could go back much, much earlier, because the county that we're in would have been underwater like millions of years ago, which is why we often find a lot of sea creatures as fossils. It's like what we got to look out for is all these bougie little sea creatures chilling in the limestone, because that would have been the seabed of the time. So there's some common fossil types to look out for alongside the shells. You can have things like ammonites, which are like the almost snail-like fossil creatures. Belemnites, which we find a lot of, which are like long small squid creatures. And then one thing that we find quite a lot of is more like coral structures, because that would have been the seabed at the time. So it's like these rocks which have got lots and lots of little tiny fossils in them.
We also find lots of devil's toenails.
Oh yeah, devil's toenails. That's one of the coolest names for a fossil, I think.
It's a massive fossil. Devil's toenail they're called.
Yeah.
Get in the bay.
If you're liking our digging adventures, please remember to hit that subscribe button and follow our channel. So alongside the green glaze, there are a lot of other types of pottery which are the more general medieval wares. Green glaze I feel like would have been their more elaborate vessels. And then you get stuff like Grimstone ware, obviously Shelley ware, also lots of other ones that are all named after the places where they were made. So
Gritty ware.
Gritty ware as well, which is like a really gritty hard one, which almost feels like sandpaper. So you need to like really like study the pottery
And feel them.
really feel them, because it's all a lot of it's down to the touch of them.
Interesting bit of ceramic to look out for is tiles.
Yeah, it's not just like their pots that you're looking for, but like what about evidence of buildings, especially in old settlements and places? You could find like the cool Roman hypercourse tiles, more medieval roof and ridge tiles. Like there's loads to find. One thing that shocks me is like how much teeth and bones there are in the soil.
And then once you start spotting them, you like find more of them and they're quite creepy.
They're scary, especially because like ancient cattle and like ancient livestock were like much different to the times of today. Like they were like bigger, they were huge. The difference between the average height of a modern cow and an Iron Age cow is as tall as 40 centimetres.
Wow.
That's like insane, which is why we find some chunky teeth.
And some of these are massive.
Absolutely huge. And I've been doing a bit of reading, and the ones with the longest roots are probably horse teeth.
Yes, actually, I think I did know that.
So like these ones with these long roots, they're all from horses. It's so cool to see.
Potentially that one.
But yeah, definitely potentially that one. So it's pretty cool to see what kind of animals they would have been farming at the time, especially as we still have animals being farmed on a lot of our land here as well. So moving from medieval times and into your more Tudor 17th, 18th century sort of eras, like people have discovered different coloured glazes and stuff gets more elaborate.
You start to see a lot more brown and darker glazes.
Yeah, and you can also see a lot of colour. So as they discovered more colours, they also discovered more techniques for the decoration of pots. No longer were we pressing bits of wool into the side of pots to create patterns, but we were actually using different coloured slips to create some quite elaborate and intricate patterns. A lot of stuff like Staffordshire slipware, which is the iconic yellow and like brown one.
Which is a really common find on the Thames.
Look, I just spotted this massive bit of base, look.
Whoa.
Look at that, with the pinched,
Oh, that's awesome.
proper pinched, like, all around the bottom, look. That's very, very Tudor, that, isn't it? The little pinched wear. Nice bit of stoneware.
Even though we're also out here with the metal detector, you don't always need it to spot a metal find. Like a coin, they actually stand out quite distinctively in the soil. Usually it's quite that human,
Yeah,
that
I feel like-
man-made shape.
I feel like that man-made shape just sticks out in like amongst the organic matter. You just spot them as well, don't you? Especially when
Yeah.
it's silver and they glint on the surface.
Yeah, silver does tend to glint. Sometimes they do mistake them for oyster shells though.
That is very true. But another thing is that after a good rain as well, I feel like it washes down the surface of the soil and really makes the surface finds stand out more.
Particularly I think with metal and flint finds.
Definitely. It shines them and makes them glint and literally scream at you from the field.
And I think there's some times of the day when it's better for spotting certain types of finds, just how the sun's hitting it.
Yeah, certain angles of sunlight definitely brings out more. And another thing is that it would shock you how shallow some finds can be. You can find Roman coins on the surface. Like the plough really tumbles everything all around together.
We've even had almost like hammered coins on the surface.
Yeah, literally on the surface. So keep your eyes out.
Ellie, what have you just spotted?
Oh, I've just seen this on the floor without a metal detector, just when I've just been like wandering about. What's that, look?
Let's have a look.
What's this?
What is that? Is it a Roman?
I don't know.
Oh, is it a token?
Oh, is it another token? Oh, wow.
Oh, that's stunning.
It's another token, look. And it's a bi-faced one.
Oh, wow.
So it's got something on both sides.
Oh, that's so cool.
Like this token that I found, like, I just couldn't believe that I spotted it on the surface. Like I literally just spotted that little round shape and I was like, no,
And
it's not.
I was quite jealous.
You were so jealous, but tokens personally as well, like it was just such a good find for me because it's such a beautiful like floral decoration on it. Stunning. And then obviously there's a lot more modern pottery that can be found as well. Especially like the Victorians, they loved to scatter their pottery everywhere, didn't they? It was one of the only ways they got rid of it, I think.
But it's really distinctive because it's usually blue and white.
And there's some beautiful designs to be found. And if you find yourself finding like a lot of Victorian pottery and broken bits of glass, then you might be looking at a bit of a Victorian bottle dump on your hands because they were often on the edges of fields.
It says Johnson, England. Probably a pottery maker. Oh. Yeah. A little bit of design on the other side as well.
So something that we find a lot of on our Thames mudlarks are clay pipes, and they're like one of your favourite things to find, aren't they, Lucy?
I know, but particularly the decorated one, but we're yet to find a decorated one on the field.
No, but we actually found a complete pipe bowl recently, and this is the first time that clay pipes started cropping up here, which is strange because they were such a prevalent and like integrated part of society for hundreds of years. From like the tobacco industry first coming in, where you find the clay pipes are quite small because tobacco was so expensive, to then it getting so popular that the tobacco pipes are getting bigger and bigger. Huge bowls, more elaborate, more decorated.
Yeah.
Yet even then, they're still a throwaway item. People will literally buy them and then chuck them away like you would a cigarette.
Just like metal detecting, field walking also requires permission from the landowner.
Yeah, you can't just go into any old field that you see on a public footpath and start picking things up. Everything belongs to someone, so you need to go and ask. So you've got to let us know what you thought to this like field walking guide that we've done here. I feel like it's been really fun just talking through all the different stuff that you can find in the field.
We always try to include our field walking finds in our metal detecting videos.
Check them out to see what else we found amongst all of the stuff that was lying on the surface. If you're feeling inspired and want to get out digging, then we've got a 10% discount code off at LP Metal Detecting, so treat yourself to some new gear.
The link's in the description.